All right, well, as a few of you get logged in, welcome to this week's edition, this bi-weekly update, if you will, where we get to talk about some of the things that are most important right now coming across our plates and hopefully across your minds as well. So today, we're going to talk about a couple of different ideas that go obviously with markets, some of the things occurring in taxes, maybe what's occurring in the economy. Remember, this is one thing I've always known and probably simplified, but we always search for wisdom, a way to make what people know seem something you can use, a nugget of something you can simply recall in a very simple way, but it's simple because it's wise, not simple because it's easy. So a lot of that for us right now is, remember, markets play in the short term on human emotion, period. Long term, they follow the trends of businesses. So as we look at things today, we'll always compare things back into that form, but we'll start with going big and beginning gratitude and positive focus, if you will. And I'd say my positive focus is spending a wonderful 4-day weekend with my daughters, where we went up to a friend's lake, went up to Peninsula State Park for a day, got hit by a massive storm, which was beautiful because we didn't know it was coming. Got to see some trees cut down, but had a wonderful trip. Although my daughters are not huge fans of the idea of camping, much bigger fans when we're there. So for myself, learning those things, seeing them grow, really creating some great family experiences again was a wonderful 4-day weekend last weekend. So for myself, how about yourself, Zach?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I'm just extremely grateful today for the opportunity to celebrate in the successes and milestones of others, whether that's here at Gentian with a retirement, a new job, new child, new grandchild, but also in my personal life. Lately, 3 of my great friends have gotten engaged. So extremely grateful for their friendship, their significant others, and their future together and being able to be part of that journey.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Zach. How about yourself, Ken?
Yeah, mine's twofold. Number one is, I don't know if you guys saw the Paralympics that happened in the last week and a half, 2 weeks that they've been going on. I think they're concluded now. But watching some of those sports and what they do is very interesting. I give them a lot of credit because it's very difficult to do what they do, whether they're blind or they're missing a limb or something like that. That one hits near and dear to my heart because I had a great friend back in Sheboygan, went to college with him at Lakeland College for a year. The Shaw twins, they were the conjoined twins that happened in Sheboygan about 15 years ago or so. They were never supposed to live, and they did, and they're thriving. And they will too probably be part of, like, maybe not the Olympics part, but as far as like para sports, if you will. So, but my gratitude goes out to them because they try really hard. They try probably harder than all of us do, and it was really neat to see that them fulfilling their dreams, no matter what happened to them along the way.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ken. I appreciate that. I'll go big one more time. I want to express gratitude as well to the experiences that helped me with, I guess you call it the memories of 2001, September 11th. In 1994, I trained in New York City in World Trade Center 2 on the 64th floor with Morgan Stanley. It was interesting to watch the 20th. I was actually there the 10th anniversary, but watching that 20 years removed now, watching the heroes that ran up the story. I hadn't seen one of the videos that was about a newscaster who was actually newscasting at the base of the building when the second plane hit. But I remember my partner Craig and I were actually sitting in our office down at Ziegler at 250 Broadway at the top floor. And we heard Mark Berman come on and say, hey, there's been a commuter plane that crashed into the World Trade Center. We're like, oh, so the interesting thing was watching the movie go of interest going, oh, geez, that's interesting. They showed this little hole and like, oh, it looks like it's probably a commuter plane. How would somebody have done that? And then as the story began to unfold, each level, the heightened awareness and the fear and dread that came in, it brings it back. And it's something that I appreciate about human history, about something that we've experienced, about the loss, about the heroes that actually charged into the building while it was coming down. And sometimes it takes you being away from it for a while to appreciate it. But the 343 firefighters that lost their lives, they also had a wonderful display, if you will, in the Deer District. One of my good friends is a firefighter, and he told me, and I've seen it several times, and showed me that. And really, as I walked into Concordia, or drove into Concordia to do the stairs, they had 3,000 some hundred flags lining the entrance. And as you walked in on September 11th, it really struck me as something that was just an ordinary day coming up, and then all of a sudden you see all this and you get the memories of it. I celebrate those who are heroes. I mourn those with the loss. To many, they haven't been able to move beyond it. To some, they have. But it was really an incredible special day, and it's one of the probably worst terrorist events ever in the history of the United States. And I remember doing a seminar about probably 3 or 4 weeks later with you over at the Radisson Mayfair, and I asked a question: who here thinks that there'll be? There's about 200 of you there. I remember people really kind of being a bit mixed up about it, and I asked the question: who thinks there'll be another terrorist event on U.S. soil in the next 5 years? Everybody raised their hand. Interestingly, everybody was prepared for another one of those to occur. Interestingly, we really haven't had much since then. So it's interesting to see, but I want to go back and express gratitude for the day, the heroes, those memories, and those who really brought that back to life for me. So with that today, I appreciate all of your time. There's a lot of things going on, if you will, to deal with COVID, Delta variant, Mu variant. Probably the next one will be new variant as you go through this. They go through the alphabet and these different ideas and where they come from. But also to do with fall. Fall's my favorite season of year. I call it autumn. It sounds much more appealing than fall. Fall sounds like something that hurts. Autumn sounds like a very wonderful word that you might use in some sort of music. But as you look at the fall and the autumn, if you will, the leaves begin to turn. The flowers that are probably the asters and the others begin to be more pungent. You get to do some reflection, use football games, all the things that come with fall. And my daughter's favorite album, which is called October Road from James Taylor, my 12-year-old, when she was about 7, claimed her favorite artist was James Taylor. It stayed true to this day. And so as soon as we hit the month of September, we play September Grass, and then we play October Road. And she wants to actually start putting up Christmas decorations now. So just to give you an idea, she's a very old soul. We'll come in and she's got Frank Sinatra channel on the Alexa. And so this is my 12-year-old Samantha, very funny. So she may be the oldest soul in our house, which is quite funny. She was just born today as you run through. But as you look at fall, as you look at autumn, as you look at everything happening in markets, as you look at some of the wavering, we're in a period of time where inflation may begin to hit. We're seeing people supposedly coming back to work from some of them being unemployed, if you will. We're seeing a lot of demand and a lot of growth, if you will, in certain industries, and a lot of hesitation in politicians. We're getting to see, even within parties, factions that are kind of factioning off to say, well, we want this, but we'll start to settle for this. And that's where the brilliance occurs. They're going to set bars on both sides. And even on the tax law, the infrastructure bill, they're going to find places in between. It's rarely as bad as one side thinks it's going to be, but you'll find that there is some progress made somewhere in between. And that's really what I think is a great thing about America. It's finding the places that we can both agree upon in the middle and still enjoy each other, even though we have different ideas. We'll talk more about that a bit later, but that's a few of the things going on that we've seen. I think if you go back to September 11th, that was a big thing in the last few weeks as well. But I know Zach and Ken have a lot to talk about as well, so I won't go too far on that. One thing I did say is I always like to start with something a little bit funny here. And there's been a lot of stuff. You've been seeing like Mars rovers. You've been seeing people talk about living, on Mars. People colonizing the moon. Who owns the moon? What if the Russians get there? The Chinese get there first? I mean, there's a whole new race for territory, but it's on the moon. Isn't that interesting? It's like a new frontier. I imagine the same will happen with Saturn. All the different planets that we can go to, and also with Peter Diamandis, one of my friends, is doing that with asteroids. As they come through, he's got a place called Planetary, a new company, and he's had it for years, called Planetary Resources. He set it up knowing that eventually the technology will get there for him to go up, mine asteroids, and bring those rare earth minerals back. So I know we've talked about him for many, many years, but some of those things come true, like the Hyperloop is actually going to be built in Colorado to have a pretty significant loop there for you to be able to test out. So cool things are coming with technology. I don't want to forget about that. But when it comes to outer space, it's really this new frontier. It's something that makes you feel very, very small when you look up at it at night. At Peninsula State Park, I looked up, we saw the Milky Way galaxy, and it was just awesome. It's one of those things that just makes your jaw drop. So that's the true definition of awe to me. But I do know, so I've got to ask you a question though. How do you organize an outer space party? You plan it. Anyway, that's what I've heard. That's what we'll use. You can use that with your kids, friends, as we go through as well. There's a ton going on those frontiers as well. So as much maybe despair and things that are happening here, there is hope for other areas. There's also hope in technologies to really begin to, I'm going to call them, cut off some of the issues that are facing us now. But remember, those issues always tend to go an end run around, and they find another way to affect us in some other way. So just keep hope alive that there's other things out there. Be well. Those are some of the things that we see as we go on. But I noticed something as well. I was doing a study with a good friend and then Malcolm Gladwell, and it was Malcolm Gladwell's not my friend. It was a good friend who had Malcolm Gladwell on, and they had a great point. We have a Statue of Liberty, but we have no Statue of Responsibility. So you look at that. And you look at leaders today, and what does leadership really mean? There's a lot of managers out there. So the real conversation today is leadership versus management. This is going to be a big portion for you, your family, for those going forward, because we've become good managers. The status quo is managed. We make trucks this way. This is the way we've always done it. We don't do anything different. That's a manager. Manager is somebody who doesn't necessarily innovate. They really don't take responsibility, and that's the difference of leadership. Leadership is that who takes responsibility, is more concerned with being effective than with being right. So there's a couple of things we'll talk more about that. This brings to me like the market right now. A couple of things I have to remind you that are timeless. You've seen some of the newsletters we've sent out and all, but if you haven't, don't mistake brilliance for a bull market right now. And that's a lot of times what happens. A lot of the meme stocks have kind of fallen back. I just had somebody say, Chris, you know any good meme stocks? And I said, no, I don't. And that's all I said. And they go, well, you don't study those? I go, no, I don't. I don't study them. I hear about them. I don't study them. Well, what about cryptocurrency? So all those things that were hot when everybody really was home for 6 to 9 months have all kind of faded away. Maybe they'll get hot again. Who knows? Maybe they'll never do it again. But it's interesting to watch what was really popular for a bit and interesting. It almost became daytime soap opera to trade cryptocurrency or to talk about it or to talk about this or that. So the interest was very, very, very high, and then it kind of wanes. Maybe it'll come back at some long tail on the other side. But, the market is very consistent with earnings. Earnings are great. According to Brian Westbury as well, the economy, the markets are not overvalued with what the other options are out there today. And the earnings are off the charts. They've upped the S&P targets for a few of the different categories and the total target. So there's some really interesting things that are out there. But I know there's still that kind of malaise of, geez, well, it's a really tough market. It's a really tough market. And people say that all the time. It always is, because most people don't know how to handle it. With that, though, what I'd like to do in talking about markets, I'd like to pass it over to Zach, because he's going to explain 100% of all the markets. You'll ever understand it and never not know anything, right? Here we go, Zach.
Exactly right. And everyone's going to have it memorized for our next webinar. It'll be great. Won't even have to present anything. But just starting out, we'll go through the market returns, kind of the difference from the last 2 weeks. We saw about a 2% pullback in almost every category in the last 2 weeks. And then also some extremely interesting market facts as well from Nick Murray and also MFS by the numbers. But the S&P 500 on year to date, 18.29% up, and about 2% off of previous highs 2 weeks ago. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, 12.97, and 815 points off of 2 weeks ago, but only 2.56%. So just another reminder, what is the news going to show you? The larger number, which is points, right? The NASDAQ, 16.68%. That tracks 47% of the index tracks technology. The Russell 2000, 11.91, which is small caps. And that one had a little bit bigger pullback of about 3.23. But again, historically, that is normal and happens often throughout the year. Growth side of small caps, 3.98%. The value, 20.38. So still a large disparity, growth and value. This year, historically, over the last 10 years, growth has had the larger disparity compared to value. International, measured by the MSCI ACWI, excluding US, is 7.81% positive. Emerging markets, 0.04% negative this year, about 2% off of where it was 2 weeks ago. We often get questions of what sectors within the stock market are doing well. The real estate is number one for the year at 28.53%. If you guys remember from...
Zach, stop for a second there. Stop for a second there. Think about that. Go back to last year and what everybody's talking about people are never going back to work. Who would have thought the best performing category would be the one everybody thought would be the worst? One thing you know for sure is you never know, but I find that stat, and we we're just talking with a few clients this week about that, that is absolutely amazing. The best category is global real estate presently out of our whole portfolio, and 0 people would have guessed it. Anyway, thanks, Zach. That's super important. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I thought that was super important.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And it was indeed the worst performer last year. So any rebalance that happened last year more than likely would have bought more of real estate during that time frame. All sectors in general in the S&P 500 are up more than 10% year to date, except for utilities and consumer staples, 9% and 7% respectively. On the fixed income side, rates are still extremely low, with really no difference from 2 weeks ago. The 1 year, 0.08%, the 5-year 0.82%, the 10-year 1.34, and the 30-year 1.93. Kind of real quickly, two really interesting facts that we looked at over the last few weeks. If the S&P 500 is able to maintain a positive return for 2021, it will be the 17th positive annual return in the last 19 years. And it's just a little perspective. On 9/1 of 2002, the S&P was at 851. As of market close yesterday, it was at 4,445, a little over a 4 times or 400% increase during that time. One that we get from one of our business leaders that we get a lot of information from, and Chris has over the years, as well as Nick Murray. And he came out with an extremely interesting fact and said that the S&P 500 return since the beginning of 1926 through the end of 20 was a tad excess of 10%. An objection that we sometimes hear is, what if I had invested during the worst possible time? Or why would I get my money going right now because markets are historically at all-time high? Tremendous concern, tremendous worry. And Nick Murray took a look at that and found the worst time someone could have invested since World War II was on October 9th of 2007. The S&P was 1,565. It didn't stop going down for almost a year and a half later, March 9th, 2009, at 677, a decline of almost 57%. Didn't reach its pre-2007 drop until 2013. And since 2013, we've had two 20% corrections, one in 2011, one in 2018, and everyone still remembers last year, the 34% correction during COVID. What was the historical, or what was the average annual return during that time? 10%. So incredible to see, even in a short amount of time, that the worst time to invest in the last 15 years, 16 years, still had an average annual return of 10%. And shows a tremendous power of the 3 virtues that Chris and our team always talk about to be a successful lifetime investor, which is faith, patience, and discipline.
Hey, Zach, in order to actually back that up as well, I have a great relative and client who said, I can't afford to go through an 07, 09. Again, I stopped for a moment. I said, so let me get this right. You can't afford to go through a temporary correction of 18 months that drops 50% in order to have the next upturn quadruple your portfolio. You can't go through that again. So if you cut to just the very first portion of the statement, that's tough to go through. But when you look at the long-term statement of what Zach had said and what this really is, but you've got a lot of people say, I can't go through that again. Well, if you're going to sell at the bottom, you can't. So again, very interesting. Thank you very much, Zach. I appreciate that. So sometimes I like to mix things up a little bit. So I want to bring Lisa on now for bringing in what's hot and kind of the topics of the things that you should know. Normally I like to have her at the beginning, but I thought I'd just mix her up a little bit and put her in the middle.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Just to mess with my head. So,
A little bit.
well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Gentian Biweekly. Very happy to know that you're all on. Just wanted to remind you of some dates that we have going on. Next Tuesday, the 21st, one of Chris's favorite days. It's World Gratitude Day, which virtually is every day for Chris. So not just this one day, but that is an actual official day. On Wednesday, the 29th, we have another Gentian Biweekly update. Again, it's the same time as today, so it's the new time of 9:30 a.m. Also on that day, we have our development day, which is a Gentian professional development day. So there'll be limited office time, but we will be able to get back to you during our breaks. But we usually go from 10 till 3 for the development day. So there's that. And then don't forget the Gentian Fall Forum, which is at the Blue Mound Country Club, going back to in person and at Blue Mound on October the 5th. I believe one of the notations was emailed, and you can still click to register for that. And then also Wednesday, October the 20th, we have our Ladies and Gentian virtual gathering. You're still welcome to RSVP for that. So just note that that will be going out. And then on Thursday, October the 28th, this is going quite far out now, but we have the Health and Wealth Forum, part of the series that we have been doing with Michelle Norris. So there's all of that going on. And obviously we have in-person meetings coming up for the fall. So watch out for the Calendly invites. that we were sending out for the October, November, and December. And then also, I believe today we'll be sending out, emailing the Nick Murray out today. So please watch for that, as Zach just quoted it. So definitely a good way to get knowledgeable on that. And I will go back to Chris. And also, Chris, yes, autumn is an English expression. So I use that all the time. I don't like fall. So
yes, Americans, oh yeah, you don't like fall. We don't like it either. We like the season. Thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate it.
thank you.
Well, with that as well, Ken, why don't we get to some of Ken's planning? There's a bunch that he's got to do as well, and I want to make sure that we can get to Ken. So Ken, how about yourself? What's going on?
Yeah, thank you very much. Great to be here with everybody as well. Chris, you had some great space jokes. I'm reading 2 books right now: Run Less, Run Faster, and Love Your Enemy. And I also checked out this book on anti-gravity, and I just can't put it down. And so again, some fun jokes here. But on a serious note, I'm going to talk about Social Security. I'm going to touch on that. A press release just came out, a very important one when we do planning with you all. I'll show you a screenshot on that piece as well. I'll talk about HSAs briefly. And then I'm going to talk about what Zach and Chris were talking about, is really stay the course. Should we change strategy? Should we change things right now because of, you guys can fill in the blank, right? Because of the markets being too high, because of inflation, because of interest rates being super low. Should we change the strategy? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. So first, let me touch on HSAs. Really, if you have an HSA available to you, if you already own one, if you're already investing in one, if you have it in cash, if you haven't invested, these HSAs, health savings accounts, are a wonderful, wonderful tool to put money into to help for medical expenses either today or down the road. In retirement, they're so flexible. They're different than the old ones we're used to, like the FSAs, the flex spending accounts. Remember, those were, if you don't use it, you lose it type of situation. These health savings accounts, they've been around for a while. More and more employers are going to them. And if you have the option to be in one, let's talk about it, because there aren't a lot of downsides to an HSA, a health savings account, for a client and for your future as far as how to pay for medical expenses. The other piece I want to talk on is it's the Social Security. I'm going to share my screen with you in a second here, if I can get back to where I was. Let me share my screen. This is a press release we just got from our trusted contact at Social Security. Here's the press release. It's in front of you right now. Social Security Board of Trustees, combined trust funds projected depletion 1 year sooner than last year. Why is this important? Because if a client, or if we are trying to bank on Social Security as the go-to for our base level of income, we need to understand what's happening with the program. Now, no one knows what's going to happen with the program 20 years from now, but what this press release is really saying is that funds are being depleted more and more and faster and quicker than people thought was going to happen. Throw on top of that with COVID and payroll taxes for Social Security, those were down as well. So all these projections go into this, but when we hit a situation where less payroll taxes are being collected for Social Security, again, is that transitory? Is that a one-off situation? Does that really have a solid effect on Social Security long-term? No one knows that answer, but this is why we plan with you. Let's try to figure out a plan with limited Social Security. Let's try to figure out a plan with maybe we're only going to get 50% of the benefit at some point in time. Because it talks about being depleted in 2034 with only 78% of the benefits payable at that time. So are we in a position, are we doing the planning? And we are definitely here to help you guys out, to go through all the scenarios, is what happens if we only receive 22%, or I should say a 22% decrease in what we're expecting in Social Security. What happens with that? What are we going to do about that? We are certainly here to help you guys do that. To touch on Zach's and Chris' point a little bit about staying the course, I'm starting to hear some chatter a little bit amongst clients right now in review meetings. Should we do something different? Should we stay the course? What about interest rates? What about bonds? The market's being higher. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, a lot of chatter right now. But the really simplistic way to look at this, in my opinion, is we wouldn't be in the position we are today in a strategy change 5 years ago. If we would have made a strategy change 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we wouldn't be in the position we are today. So here at Gentian, we really feel strongly about staying the course, faith, patience, and discipline, of course. We know that is the long-term answer here. It's just that we have to go through those periods of some pain to get the gain, like Chris mentioned with his scenario as well. So that's what I wanted to touch on today. I appreciate you being with all of you guys, and I'm going to hand it back over to Chris.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate it. So it's always nice to have you guys back on, I guess I would say, back into a consistent system of what we do. Now, we've set up what we've done to be timeless. So it's modeled after things that we've seen during all environments that do well. So I think what Ken is saying, we've echoed. It's what we began this years ago, what we studied to find. We didn't want to find a system we had to fudge with all the time and just guess and try to time, because timing doesn't work. Yesterday, I was talking with, I think it was Brian Westbury or his contemporary, and it was the key was, or maybe reading his information, said we have yet to find anyone who can time the market. So we've been searching still. We still look for it. If somebody can do it, great. You can time it once typically, but not on a long-term basis. So typically timing will lose on a pretty consistent long-term basis. So thank you very much, Ken. I appreciate that. So I'll go with just two things, Malcolm. I have about 412 things that I've studied and seen and wanted to tell you, but let me do this. So Malcolm Gladwell made a couple of interesting comments. I told you about the leadership versus management. That one can be debated. We can talk more about it. But what's interesting is that Malcolm Gladwell was saying school was actually invented by industrialists. It was invented because we didn't have enough compliant factory workers. So he says we need to stop stealing dreams. We've taught people to be compliant, to be managers, to just generally do what they're told, which is what schools were for. It says we don't educate people. We don't teach them to lead. The other stuff about leadership is what people need to understand. It was really interesting to hear him say that, because as I went through all the different things I've learned in school, until I've been out of school and been to a lot of entrepreneurial coaching, being taught to lead was not part of what it was. Being taught to be compliant was definitely the case. And that's where in school, I remember some of the biggest conflicts were, well, but that's what you think. Teach me to think and we can have a different opinion, but that was not what they wanted to grade you on. And I found that out pretty quickly as you go through. So it's kind of a fun thing you had with college professors. It's interesting here that, the World Wide Web is a big issue. Kids are on it. There's a lot of things going on with it, but it reminds me of right now, you see a lot of spiders coming out. We were looking at a door and there was a massive spiders when we were in these caves up by two rivers. It was kind of funny. I think it was the Maribel Caves or something, but it reminds me of a joke. What did a daddy say to a baby spider? You spend too much time on the web. Correlates to what I like to say to my daughters as well. You spend too much time on the web, too much time on your devices. So we can all take a note from that as well. As we run through, there's a lot of different things that are important for us today. The key is hope is still one of the biggest things we can have. Your mindset is extremely important. Once you retire and probably this is probably the biggest thing I've read in the last probably 2 or 3 weeks that really stuck with me and has been resonating. But when we take away people's meaning and purpose, we often end their lives while they're still living. Be careful that you don't do that for yourself. When you take away somebody, hey, my job, it was my job, everything, my whole life is my job, and that job ends, oftentimes you'll find a steady decline after that, no matter what age. If that was 50, if that was 90, but you'll find people have a need for purpose. We all have it. You just may not recognize it. So the key is to keep searching for it. You've always got something to give to your neighbors. We again find you're happiest when you're doing for someone else. We've been reading studies that show that they measure that. It's when you're doing for someone else that oftentimes people are the happiest that they could be. So again, a few things I just wanted to end with on there as well. We take this very seriously. We're going to add a segment 2 about some of the research we do every week. I think that would be a great one to have here too, because there's a ton of research going on behind the scenes. We just met with 3 of the representatives from managers yesterday as well. Talked about a couple of the ideas that they have, but it always adds and accumulates to our portfolio. Man, we're looking for the timeless pieces that we can use for you. And rebalancing is one of those things where when a category like global real estate didn't do well last year, rebalancing bought more. When it does really well this year, we take a little bit. That's automatically buy low, sell high, right? The systems are really set up to be timeless. So what should we be doing? We should be sticking with the plan. Oftentimes, one of the most boring things that you can do is one of the best when it comes to retirement and asset management. So as we look at planning, retirement, asset management, what Zach was talking about, even Lisa, those are extremely important. So as this autumn begins in a few weeks, and you begin to see the leaves turn, you get to begin to see the beautiful colors that come out in the autumn timeframe. I look forward to talking to you in the next couple of weeks. If you have any great photos, share them with us. We look at those and we love those when you share with Ken, myself, Zach. We enjoy sharing your moments with you. Please make sure you're looking at finding your purpose. If not, we'll talk more about that as we go forward. We want to help you with that and make sure you understand and help you appreciate how important what you're doing for others is, even if it's just helping one neighbor pick up their mail, do something else. So with that, I want to let you all know, thank you so much. Remember, we're Gentian Retirement here. We help you plan it, live it, and give it. We take that very serious. We spend all of our time doing that. And we want you to continue to remain, you guys are phenomenal. You're grateful. You're giving us great introductions. We thank you for that. Have a wonderful, great week and be the hope for someone else. With that, goodbye.